She didn't miss you. Not at first. The silence didn't echo until it did. At first, she told herself she was fine, that losing you was freedom. But then it hit her. Slow, sharp, and merciless. That strange ache for the very presence she once dismissed. This isn't nostalgia. It's regret disguised as realization. The mind replays what it ignored, and the heart rewrites its own story. And when that truth finally lands, when she feels the full weight of what she lost, she doesn't just remember you. She starts craving you. Because every woman who takes a man for granted eventually faces one haunting moment, the moment she realizes he's not coming back. You see, it's easy for her to take you for granted when you are always there. When your attention flows without restraint, when your presence is predictable, when your emotions are openly displayed like an unlocked door. In the beginning, she doesn't mean to undervalue you. She simply responds to what the human mind always does with abundance. It normalizes it, then devalues it. Your consistent affection becomes background noise. Your availability becomes invisible. She doesn't consciously think you're less valuable. She simply stops feeling your value. And that is where the slow erosion begins. The average man tries to fix this erosion by doing more. He texts more often, explains his worth, argues for attention, and believes that love can be preserved through reassurance. But the stoic man understands something deeper, that attraction does not live in reassurance. It lives in the space created by restraint. When you withdraw from the need to be seen, you become seen differently. Your silence becomes a signal. Your absence becomes an emotional mirror in which she confronts her own neglect. Attraction is not just chemistry, it's behavioral tension. A woman's emotional system responds to mystery, scarcity, and perceived value. When your energy becomes unavailable, her psychology enters what behavioral scientists call a reward reactivation loop. The same mechanism that drives addiction begins to replay. She starts recalling every moment when your presence gave her validation, comfort, or excitement. But now, that source is gone. The mind, in its desperation, begins to idealize what it once ignored. It reconstructs your memory, not as you were, but as the best version of what you represented. Stability, direction, masculine grounding. That reconstruction is the seed of regret. And here lies the contradiction of human desire. She had everything she claimed to want, but only learns to value it through absence. Your silence becomes a sculptor, shaping her perception in ways your words never could. You must understand, a woman's respect is not earned through endless giving, but through controlled withholding. She does not regret the man who tried to please her. She regrets the man whose presence carried weight and whose departure carried consequence. This is why emotional steadiness is the purest form of dominance. When you remain calm in her chaos, when you refuse to argue for your worth, when you hold your frame even as she withdraws, something shifts beneath the surface of her composure. She begins to sense a rare form of power, the kind that doesn't need to explain itself. That's the psychological moment where curiosity replaces complacency. She starts to wonder what you're thinking, if you've moved on, if another woman has discovered what she overlooked. That wondering is the quiet rebirth of desire. Most men don't realize this. They try to remind her of their value through action, instead of allowing her to feel its loss through reflection. But reflection is more powerful than persuasion. When a woman starts reflecting on who you were and what you brought into her life, she inevitably compares that version of you to the men she meets afterward. And that's when the emotional contrast forms. The mental image of you becomes the reference point, and every other interaction feels diluted, less meaningful, less magnetic. She may not admit it out loud, but she feels it. The small gestures she once overlooked become the details she now replays in silence. Every glance you gave her with calm certainty, every time you listened without judgment, every decision you made without hesitation. Those moments form the architecture of her longing. They remind her that strength wrapped in composure is rare, and that emotional predictability is not weakness, it's stability. You represented a form of masculine grounding that her subconscious recognized as security, even when her conscious mind resisted it. That contradiction, the emotional need for safety versus the ego's craving for novelty, is what drives the regret she feels later. When you stop chasing her acknowledgement, you reclaim the psychological frame. You cease to be a participant in her emotional volatility and become an observer of your own value. This shift rewrites her perception of you entirely. You're no longer the man waiting to be chosen. You become the man whose absence forces her to reevaluate her choices. This is how the stoic man leads without words, through composure, distance, and unwavering presence in silence. You don't withdraw to punish her. You withdraw to purify the dynamic. You step back not because you've stopped caring, but because care without self-respect becomes servitude. And when your silence begins to echo louder than your presence ever did, that's when her emotions awaken in ways you can't fabricate through effort. She starts missing you, not because she's lonely, but because she recognizes too late that your steadiness was a rare kind of strength. And in that moment of realization, when the quiet she once desired becomes unbearable, you become something else entirely. You transform from the man she took for granted into the man she cannot forget. As her thoughts begin to wander back to you, something subtle shifts inside her. It's not simply memory, it's a confrontation with contrast. The men who came after you may have offered charm, attention, or excitement, but what she misses is the center you carried within yourself, the calm authority that made her feel both safe and slightly uncertain. It's that duality, security mixed with unpredictability, that haunts her because it awakens something ancient in her psychology, the instinct to respect strength she cannot control. When you embodied that steadiness, you weren't performing confidence. You were radiating conviction. You didn't explain your worth. You demonstrated it through silence, through choices, through restraint. And now, in your absence, she begins to notice how every man who follows talks too much, tries too hard, explains endlessly what you expressed with a glance. The difference isn't in words, it's in energy. You moved with deliberation. You acted as if the world would adapt to your pace. That composure is what her mind replays because it represented something more powerful than attraction. It represented leadership. In the psychology of attraction, what she truly responds to isn't constant affection, it's calibrated unpredictability. When you showed up fully and then pulled back with purpose, you activated what behavioral experts call emotional contrast. The brain anchors emotion to change, not consistency. Every moment you stepped away with composure created emotional oxygen. It gave her space to feel your value. When you stayed detached instead of reactive, her mind began to assign meaning to your restraint. It wasn't that you didn't care, it was that you refused to be moved by her chaos. That composure whispered dominance, and dominance, when expressed without aggression, becomes unforgettable. Seneca once said that power is best proven by not using it. You embodied that law without knowing it. While others argued to be right, you simply remained still, allowing truth to reveal itself through silence. That restraint is what she now recalls in moments when life becomes noisy. Because your stillness wasn't passive, it was disciplined. It told her, even subconsciously, that you understood something she didn't, that control begins where reaction ends. This is what separates the average man from the stoic one. The average man chases closure, demands explanation, seeks validation through understanding. The stoic man understands that understanding is unnecessary. He knows that emotion loses power when observed instead of obeyed. By detaching from the outcome, you shifted the frame entirely. She stopped being the judge of your worth, and you became the standard by which she now judges herself. When women speak of the one that got away, they're not talking about perfection. They're talking about gravity, about a man whose energy pulled them inward, not through persuasion, but through presence. That presence is not learned through tactics. It's cultivated through solitude, through struggle, through failure that refines rather than weakens. You earned that aura by walking through pain without complaint, by facing loss without desperation, by mastering your own need for validation. The same strength that once made her feel secure now becomes the shadow that follows her into every future relationship. Over time, she starts to see it more clearly, the way your patience balanced her impulsiveness, the way your silence forced her to listen to herself, the way your boundaries protected not just your dignity, but her respect for you. Those moments replay not as scenes from a relationship, but as lessons she didn't understand until too late. And as the days stretch into months, she begins to sense the full inversion of power. The energy dynamic that once felt casual now feels weighted. You no longer orbit her emotions. Her emotions orbit your absence. In the quiet moments of reflection, driving alone, lying awake at night, scrolling through old messages, she revisits the cadence of your presence. She remembers how you spoke with measured certainty, how your attention felt rare, how your withdrawal felt final. That emotional finality terrifies her more than any argument ever could, because it signals something irreversible. You didn't leave out of anger. You detached out of evolution. That distinction cuts deep. One can negotiate anger, but one cannot negotiate evolution. Machiavelli once wrote that men should be both loved and feared, but the wise man understands that the purest form of fear is respect without control. That's what she feels now, a quiet, haunting reverence for what cannot be influenced. She fears the permanence of your distance because it reminds her that you were never truly hers. She was merely allowed proximity to a man who belonged to his own path. Meanwhile, your stillness continues its quiet work. Every moment you remain composed reinforces her realization. The less you chase, the more she reflects. The more you grow, the more she feels small against the scale of your detachment. She begins to see what you've become, unreachable not because you're hiding, but because you've transcended the need to prove anything. And that realization is the birthplace of her regret. But this regret isn't sudden. It builds slowly, like a tide rising beneath the surface. At first, she tries to suppress it with distraction, with justification, with pride. Yet pride cannot survive the weight of reflection. Eventually, she remembers the way your eyes didn't flinch when she tested your patience, the way your tone remained calm, even when provoked. She recalls the quiet strength that never demanded to be seen, yet was impossible to ignore. And in that remembering, she meets the truth she tried to avoid. She took a man for granted who had already mastered what most men never even recognize: the art of not needing validation to feel valuable. The average man seeks understanding. The stoic man seeks peace. You chose peace, and peace has a strange effect on memory. It amplifies it. The calmer you remain, the louder your absence becomes in her world of noise. That is the unseen reward of masculine restraint. It doesn't scream victory, it simply radiates permanence. And permanence, when felt in hindsight, becomes obsession. And one day, when the storm within her quiets just enough for memory to rise, she will begin to feel it. Not the kind of regret that comes with words or logic, but the deep ache of absence that whispers through her bones. She will remember how your silence once filled the air with tension and meaning, how your stillness wasn't emptiness, but control, how your absence carried more weight than her presence ever did. What once felt ordinary to her will begin to shimmer with meaning. The way you used to pause before you spoke, the steady rhythm of your breathing when she was chaotic, The calm certainty that no matter how much she tried to provoke, you would not bend. In the beginning, she mistook that restraint for disinterest. Now, she sees it for what it truly was: mastery. You were never withholding out of fear, you were withholding out of understanding, because you knew that a woman doesn't fall in love with your availability. She falls in love with your mystery, the unspoken depth that she can sense but never fully reach. You became that unreachable horizon, and when you stepped back, she finally saw how far she had drifted from her own center. It's not you she misses entirely. It's who she was when she stood next to your strength. The regret she feels is not punishment, it is recognition. The realization that the kind of man she once took for granted is rare, almost extinct. She begins to see other men, loud and eager, their words spilling without control, their emotions for sale. And in that comparison, your restraint becomes sacred, your composure becomes legend. You transform in her mind from the man she thought she knew to the one she can no longer find in anyone else. This is the turning point that few men ever witness. The moment a woman begins to rewrite her own memories, not because she chooses to, but because her mind needs to make sense of what it lost. Every silent moment you gave her, every measured word, every time you walked away instead of arguing, all of it now carries new meaning. She starts to understand that your distance was not rejection, but revelation. You were teaching her what true masculine presence feels like by removing it entirely. And that absence becomes a mirror, reflecting not your weakness, but her dependence on your strength. She begins to realize how much power you had not through dominance, but through discipline, through restraint, through the quiet certainty that you were never competing for her attention. She was competing for your respect. In that realization lies your final victory. Because regret is not about the past. It's about the mind re-evaluating its own choices under the light of truth. She regrets not because you hurt her, but because she finally sees the kind of man you truly were. The kind she cannot replace. The kind she now measures every other man against. And you remain still, not out of indifference, but out of sovereignty. You don't chase, you don't seek validation, and you don't need to be remembered to hold value. You've already won in silence, because her regret is the echo of your restraint. Her longing is the proof of your evolution. You've become what every stoic man strives to be. The lesson she didn't understand until you were gone. A symbol of the kind of presence that does not demand attention, but commands reflection. The man she once overlooked has become the myth she now searches for in everyone else. And as she replays the story in her mind, again and again, searching for the moment it all changed, she will finally understand. It wasn't the day you left that broke her. It was the day she realized you were never coming back. Because the kind of man who masters himself cannot be owned, cannot be begged for, and cannot be replaced. You became untouchable, not by force, but by freedom. And that, more than anything, is what she will never forgive herself for losing.